So imagine being a seller sitting down and they're like, well, what do you do? I'm like, well, I can help you list and sell. Anything else? You're like, nope, that's it. And Jose's like, well, I can help you list it and sell it. I can give you a cash offer today. We could do creative financing. Oh, by the way, if you need it to be staged, we got that. Who gets the business? And it's not an ego thing. It's not like, rah, I'm so good. He's just adding more what? And whoever adds more value wins. Period.
And it's about having different ways of like being able to monetize the lead. Like, so for a wholesaler.
Are you holding like pistols just then?
Yeah,
Is that what you did?
yeah. Well, it's like,
dang, bro, that Mexican sombrero came out. He's like, what?
I think it's like having different tools for different situations. You know, if I'm going to a seller and I'm like, hey, I could only help you sell it versus, hey, if you want a cash offer, I can help you with the cash offer. You want to do something creatively, we can help you with that. You want to do something where I list it for you, we can help you with that. It's about being the solution to whatever their problem is, basically. Not only that, but like even Open Door, they have an agent program where if you create an opportunity for them, they'll pay you 1%
right.
as
So
well too.
A question to ask is they're like, well, I'm talking Open Door. Well, may I ask you a question? Would that be okay? Yeah. Did they already formally make you an offer? No, I haven't actually reached out to them, but my intention is to do that. Well, with that knowledge, you can do what Jose just said, submit it, and you can have the conversation with the seller, but submit it. Open Door will pay you 1%. And they'll give it back to you when they sell it.
No, I don't know about that one.
They used to. But like, I don't think so. What I'm aware of is, do you see, but if I don't know the option, what would you do? Just move right past. Because what Jose was saying is if my mind is blind to the possibility, my eyes will be blind to the opportunity. There will literally be something directly in front of me. Jose will be able to create value and do a deal where other people can't even see that there's one there.
I think the agent of the future is just a lot more valuable and is a lot more skilled and has a lot more different solutions to their problems, basically. And I think the agents that are going to struggle are the agents that are like, this is the way I've always done business. I'm not changing anything. This is the way it is. And the agents that succeed are the ones that are like, okay, what do I have to do differently to be able to make that happen, basically?
I agree. 100%.
Yeah. So what Aaron is saying about the cash offers, it's not necessarily saying that the cash offer is going to work out. It's a lead magnet, meaning like it's a way of marketing it. So like when we're like Angel's calling, like if you're telling them, hey, I'm going to list your property, or if you're saying, hey, we work for, we have a cash offer program. Would you be interested in a cash offer? Is just to generate a lead, basically. So even when you're calling, your response rate is going to go up because the offer is more attractive than, hey, I can help you list the property. And now you're differentiating it. I have a moving truck that I basically says, we buy houses, like a big yellow banner. I have a dump truck that says we buy houses.
It's got pajamas that say we buy houses. Like he's just like,
no. So the best return, and this is just to be fully transparent with you guys, the best return on the money is not the moving truck or the dump truck. The best return is the PPL, the pay per lead, because those are people who are going on Google saying, I want a cash offer. And a lot of times the cash offer doesn't work out. Very rarely will it, but most of the time it turns into a listing and then we just sign them up. So what's going to happen a lot of times is you're going to ask them how much they want for the property and they're going to tell you a retail price. Right. And when they tell you the retail price, it's just going to be about learning how to have that conversation, how you transition it from a cash offer presentation to a listing presentation. And we can help you with that. Like I'm doing that all the time now.
We did a YouTube video specifically on that conversation.
Yeah, because I mean, some sellers don't want anybody walking
No.
And no matter what you say, they're just like, no.
Not only that, I remember being in front of a seller and I'm sitting there and he's like, look, Jose, I like you. I want to work with you, but I've got 3 cash offers right here. If you don't make me a cash offer, I'm going to work with one of these 3 people. I do not want to list the property. And at that time, I was like, okay, let me make you a cash offer. It was lower than the other offers that he had on the table, but I told him, I can guarantee you that I'll close. Not only that, he trusted me because of just the conversations that we have had. He went with my offer. We flipped it as well too. But then what I learned recently is as a cash offer lead magnet, I lost business to different people like Open Door, or I lost business in different situations. So whenever you go to a investor seminar, they talk about what is your acquisition strategy and then what is your exit strategy as well too, or your disposition strategy. As realtors, if we generate a cash offer lead, most of us have one exit strategy on that, which is to list that property. As investors have multiple exit strategies for that same motivated seller. So the more exit strategies that you have, the more you're able to monetize the people that are raising their hand.
The actual opportunities.
So my exit strategies are, one, if I can buy it and they offer it to me at a great price, I'll buy it. Now, if I don't want to buy it, another exit strategy is I can wholesale it to somebody else. That's a different exit strategy. I just wholesaled another property, $75,000. I never put any money out of pocket. It was like the easiest and best transaction of my life. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I've been flipping properties and waiting 3 months to make $75,000 when I just made it with no risk. Then I got beat out by Open Door on a cash offer that I thought I had in the bag, and Open Door bought it for like $70,000 more than what I was willing to pay. You're going to prospect. Who are you going to prospect? Just listed, just sold, database, NODs, right? Who else? Expired, FISBOs, the ones that most people think about, right? And the problem is that us as realtors, we've been programmed to think absentee owners, just listed, just sold, expired, and for sale by owners.
And the problem with that is that those are red oceans.
They're highly competitive.
There's lots of blood in the water and there's lots of sharks in the water. And highly competitive. Now, we're great whites. We could push in there and get our unfair share. I would much rather prefer to swim in a blue ocean because it's easier.
So those in that front document that you guys had, I basically put, okay, how do realtors think? And then how do wholesalers think? So I would pick one of those niches. I chose the probate niche because I was like, look, it's market resistant. Guess what? If interest rates are 3% and somebody dies, will they be selling the property?
Yeah. Statistically, 65% of those homes are free and clear. And the motivation, if they do want to sell, is through the roof. And do you see how none of this would be happening if he wasn't doing all the stuff we're talking about? He wouldn't even have the opportunities. Because you're just dealing with people that like, well, we're moving to like California. You know what I mean? Like one place to the next.
So look, on here are the receipts on that one. That was the seller's name. You can look up the address. The address is right there, 401 Rancho. And she responded back to one of the text messages.
You put the text message?
I put I wanted you guys to, I wanted you guys to see that I didn't come over here to like tell you guys something that was working 10 years ago or 15 or 20 years ago. We genuinely wanted to come out here and be able to like help you guys make your business better because that helps out everybody. So I added the receipts, address, I want a cash offer. And then she basically gave me some details. I called her. You can look up the tax records and everything like that. That property basically double closed on it. Then I added a pay per lead provider. So I added the pay per lead providers. Then I added examples of 2 properties at a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It tells you how much I paid per lead. And then you can look up those addresses and see me as the listing agent on those properties. So this is all like 100% verifiable right there. And, oh, I even added the screenshot so you see me as a listing agent.
Well, here's what's interesting. What do you think gets in the way of doing the pay per lead stuff? Yes, which is really a mindset thing. Because what's wild to me is we are willing to give up 35% for a lead. How do we justify giving $5,000 for a lead? How do we do that in our minds? You say, oh, well, I made, right? I'm making 10 grand.
Yeah, I wouldn't have had it anyway.
Yeah, I wouldn't have had it anyway, so it's fine. Guys, you realize how ridiculous it is to pay $5,000 for a lead? Where he spent 1, 2, 3, 4, he spent $1,600 and made $60,000.
$2,000, Aaron. Your math.
My bad, 2,000. Yeah.
But it's 2 listings on $2,000 of ad spend right there. Not only that, but it's a seller, not a buyer. So the receipts are right there. The listing is right there with my name on it. You can verify it on the MLS. Here's the other property with my name on it. And then the other thing that we put is better dialers. What do realtors think when they think dialers? Mojo, right? We've been programmed, guys. We've been going to the same conferences over and over.
And then you know what we accept? 6 contacts an hour.
Yeah. And then I put, what do wholesalers? Angel introduced me to like ZenCall and other dialers, and then he created his own, which is Enzo Dialer right there. That's the way that, so time out. This is who we're competing against. We're competing against people that don't think like realtors. We're competing against people that are willing to invest time, money, and energy to find motivated sellers.
To beat us to the opportunity.
But guess what? Us as real estate agents, we provide more options and more solutions. So if we start educating ourselves on these things, we could actually take some of that market share instead of them and build wealth for our families as well too. Better phone numbers as well too, right? So like, okay, whenever it comes time to skip trace, if you see a house that is burned right here, what could you guys do to get in contact with that owner? Title, what else? True people, right? What else? LexisNexis.
Forewarn, LexisNexis, yeah.
Right. All right. I basically did this. So if you want large numbers of data, your boy Angel right here can get you the most accurate data. He can get you guys Social security numbers. That's how accurate the data
He hesitated.
I was like trying to think about the right word, but think about it. Okay. You see you want mass data, like hundreds of it. He can get you the best data ever. But
Hold on, guys. We have some people here who need Social Security.
Yeah, it's true.
Right.
It's true. It's coming up, team.
You told them about me? Come on, dude. I'm kidding. All right. But like I found out about this thing through Angel. It's called Forewarn.
Yeah.
If you only need one phone number, it's $20 a month. And it's the best way to get one phone number that I've ever used in my life.
Do you know what they actually tell you when you sign up? They tell you, do not look up any celebrities. If we see that you do that, we will kick you off the platform.
So
that's how accurate that information is.
So this is how realtors think. Okay, I just asked you see a property that has burn damage? You're like, oh, can I pull it up on title? And then can I use True People Search, which the accuracy on True People Search is very inaccurate or not as high quality. Instead, you see a property like this, so you got to stop thinking like a real estate. I see a property like this. This is a property that we're in negotiations right now. Don't worry, I didn't put the address anywhere.
Let's go.
We're in negotiations right now on this property where he wants to sell it to us at $400,000 because it has fire damage. There's this concept called driving for dollars. Okay, you ever see a garage sale? You ever see an estate sale? You ever see a burned house? You ever see a house with deferred maintenance? You ever see a house with a pod in front of it? These are all moving signals. So whenever we see that, what do? Okay, what if they're not home or it's an absentee? What if it's like a firehouse and nobody lives there? What do? Besides True People Search.
You
skip trace them, right?
So if you have, and the point that Jose's making is better tools equal better outcomes.
Yeah. So even with the paper leads, sometimes they'll input wrong phone numbers on there, or even with like home light leads, they'll input wrong phone numbers. This tool, Forewarn, I'm able to get a hold of people that other people aren't because I had the right tool to get the right phone number. So next time you're driving by a burnt house or a house with an estate sale where the owners aren't there, or somebody says, my uncle, or here, let me give you another example. Somebody walks into your open house, right? And how often do they give you a wrong phone number? A lot of times. But guess what? Forewarn, you can actually look at people by name. So if I'm like, hey, excuse me, what was your name?
Dulce.
And what's your last name?
Vasquez.
Pleasure to meet you. How often do they give you a fake name? No. What if I told you with the real name, not even a property address, you can look up the right phone number for them. So what if you do open houses and you're like, okay, right now I get 10 leads per open house and 5 of them have the wrong phone numbers and I'm never able to get a hold of them. What if from now on, you ask for the phone number, but then you always ask for their first and last name? What if somebody has a referral for you? Like somebody says, hey, I have a referral for you. Great. Would you be able to put me in contact with them? Oh, let me check. How often do we get? Let me check with them to see if I can do it. What I do instead is I'll be like, okay, would you be able to put me in contact with them? Oh, let me check with them to see if I can do it. Okay. Just out of curiosity, what's their first name? Well, it's like, oh, it's Dulce. Okay, good. And do they have the same last name as you? Is it Vasquez? Oh, no. It's Smith. Okay, so Dulce Smith.
So
I'm just like, boom. I had their phone number.
Thank you very much.
And now I have the right tool. I had this guy that was like, oh yeah, my daughter's going to be selling my property. I'm in assisted living. I'm like, could you put me in contact with them? Like, oh yeah, let me get back to you. Followed up with them. Nothing. I'm like, hey, what's your daughter's name? Peggy Sue. I'm like, what's her last name? Does she have the same last name as you? He's like, no. Her last name is Smith or something like that. I'm like, okay, good. Now I have everything I need to be able to get in contact with that individual because I have the right tool. So I think for us, the agent of the future is getting acclimated with the right strategy, the right tools, the right systems, and the right mental maps. If we're able to do that, it's going to increase our chances of succeeding. If we're not able to do that, We're going to be having conversations. Do you remember back in the day when I used to make like 300,000 back in the day?
Yeah. You're going to be like, gather round, children. There was a time where I could sell one house and make $40,000.
Even
and
now,
the kids are going to be like, oh, that was real. And you're going to be like, yeah, that actually used to happen.
When you help someone, you feel maybe 100 times better than making a paycheck.
100%.
I got a stack of paychecks in my car right now that I haven't cashed. I don't even give a crap. I've had students or people where they're like, Brian, I was literally in a broken down car. What the hell am I gonna do? I gave you guys $3,000. I'm so lost. And then even if it's 50 to 60K a year flipping houses, I'm like, hell yeah. I guess like talk to me about impact. When did you realize that making an impact was so important to you?
Yeah, when I pursued all the things that you just described, and once I got them, it didn't really do anything.
Yeah.
So like I've heard Dion talk about it recently, and I love what he's doing. He's like, imagine like driving the best car, but you don't feel like you're actually getting anywhere.
Yeah.
Imagine sleeping in the best bed, but like you can't get a nice rest.
I'm not to go back to the EXP thing, but that's why I don't want people to be agents, because I'm like, dude, there's so much more, and they get stuck in this like rat race of get listings, but help buyers. Yeah. Where I just want them to think bigger.
Yeah, and what I would propose is what I can help them with is precisely that.
Yeah.
So it's to now like, do that, but also earn equity. Also pay attention to this rev share thing. Also, right, own part of a title company or a mortgage company. So like diverse, start thinking like a business person.
Yeah.
So you can create a life worth living. Because to me, I would be in rooms with people where it's like, okay, well, let me ask you a question. Because the industry has a tendency, and because you used to go to all those events, where they praise gross.
Yeah.
And you have to be very careful how you incentivize people because it shapes behavior.
Oh, 100%.
And
that was deep. Write that down. Right? That's very true.
And I would be in rooms with people and I'd be like, bro, like, let me ask you a question. If you made $1 million but got divorced, are you still successful?
No.
Because to me, there's no amount of external success that can make up for failure at home.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's like, let's say you make $1 million a year, but like you never go to any of your kids' events.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still successful?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think if you have the capacity to lead, you should. Because I think that there's a huge gap of like leaders, people like Brian or people like you that are sharing that message when you have a lot of attention and you're very influential. So, spitting on the floor and telling people they're small because they don't have huge car payments.
Yeah.
That shapes behavior.
Oh, 100%.
And it causes people to get on that perpetual hamster wheel.
Yep. And brokers do that on purpose.
And they never get off.
Yeah. Brokers do that on purpose because I used to work at Intero Real Estate.
Oh, yeah.
And back in the day, that was like the thing, like somebody pull up in a Tesla.
Yeah.
Then this other one pulls up in like a more expensive car. And then you're like, damn, I got to get a freaking Porsche just to hang. Be cool and just to drive around with my suit on. So I remember I was like flipping houses. I'm making a bunch of money. And I remember there was a time where I had like 15 flips going on. I was like busier than I've ever been.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, dude, I am not happy. Like, this sucks. Like, I am like...
You were like empty.
Yeah, I was just like, damn. I was like stressed out, empty.
Friction at home because you're working too much.
100%. I was like, dude, real estate's number one. My family's going to be number two, but just for this year.
Yeah. And what I think is so interesting is that there's cognitive dissonance because people are like, I'm a family man.
Yeah.
And I'm like, bro, look at your behavior.
Oh, yeah. No.
You're not.
Yeah, no. Yeah. I
had to be honest with myself. I'd be like, if I'm really honest with myself, it's funny because I told, Jose this, that, you look at like your trophy room. And in the past there would be, oh, I've done this, or I've accomplished this, or I have this. And what I realized, and it was really like embarrassing, is that my relationship with my wife wasn't in my trophy room.
Yeah.
And I was like, shit, dude, like, what am I doing? That should be the top thing in the trophy room because it's a reoccurring source of joy. Where those other things are hits. And we drastically overestimate the power of those hits.
Yeah.
Because like I remember I had a car on a dream board for like 2 years. I went to the Mercedes-Benz Museum while I was there and sat in it. And then I got it.
Yeah.
And for 2 months, it was like, oh my God. And then it was just a car, bro.
I know.
Like it totally disappeared.
Yeah.
And you drastically overestimate what you think you're going to derive from that.
Yeah.
And in the end, like what really matters is, again, relationships and impact.
Yeah.
And I remember going to one of another mentor that I had, And he asked me to speak at his like 30th anniversary of writing his book. So I flew out to Texas and I did it. And it really struck me because there were people in the room who flew all around, the country to be there. They're Skyping people in. And what I recognized, I thought I was the only one that he had made such an impact. I thought I was like special.
Yeah.
And I realized instantaneously, I'm not special, dude. He's done this for a lot of people. And what I became aware of is that everybody was in that room, not because he had made them rich or because he made them blissed out of their mind. It's because he gave them something that was very helpful or useful. He made an impact in their life. Yeah. And what I realized in that moment, I pulled him aside. I said, hey, not only have you taught me a skill, but you're teaching me how to live. Yeah. And that's dope. Because I think culturally, particularly for men, the message that we get is there's only three ways to be masculine. Yeah. One is physical ability, strength. So everybody posts, their bodies.
Yeah. Flex your biceps.
Yeah. 2 is sexual prowess. Yeah. 3 is making money. Yep. And I don't believe any one of those have anything to do with being a man. No. I think being a man is 2 things. 1 is being able to give love and being able to receive it. And 2 is having a mission or a purpose that's bigger than yourself. So what I see is a lot of particularly men running around trying to prove themselves as men in those areas. Yeah. And that leads to what happened to you and what happened to me, which was I do all that. And then I sit around and I'm like, bro, this is not what I thought it was. Yeah. This is empty. Yeah. I'm not, I have some accoutrements of success, but A, I don't know my time. I'm working harder now than I probably was ever. B, relationships are suffering. All these things are suffering.
I'd be in my house, right? Paid off house, just to give context, right? I got a nice window with my pool. I can see the trees. Yep. I got my kids with me watching TV. I got my beautiful wife in the kitchen. I got my dogs all around me. And I'm just anxious as all hell. Yeah. I am just holy crap, just playing through all these weird scenarios and oh, what if this happens? What if this happens? I got to file my taxes. I got to do this. I got to do that. And I was damn, I realized that I was in that place for a while, and that's what actually got me to go to church, because I was talking to Ryan about it, and he was like, you're anxious because you're away from God and Jesus. So I started going to church, got baptized.
And I'm curious though, when he said that, was there any pushback on that? Were you like, nah, bro? Or were you like,
no, I was like, no. I was
I'm good. No. I was like, that might work for you, but not for me.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know. But I got to the point where I was just almost desperate, where I was just like, I need to figure something out. You can be successful in real estate and business or whatever, and be right with God.
They're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, exactly.
And in fact, they enhance each other.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I realized even after getting baptized and seeing all these things is the love, the time, the leverage, all that crap is important. But also whatever your relationship is with Jesus, God, that's even more important, because something could happen and then you're gone and you ain't taking any of this leverage, this EXP. You ain't taking
none of it.
And more importantly, for myself, I realized a leader, right? A leader makes money. They do this, they do that. Me going to get baptized, I did it for myself, to commit, but I also did it for my kids and my wife, for them to see me commit, because I want them to live the same way.
I just read something recently that speaks to exactly what you're saying. So if you take a triangle and it's sitting like this, if you turn it on its side, it becomes like an arrow. And most people do leadership like a triangle instead of like an arrow. So what you're doing now is you turn that on its side. Now it's an arrow, and everything behind the tip of the spear is safe. Yeah. So now you're leading by going forward. Yeah. And moving in a particular direction. And the other thing I mentioned to someone today, we've done a bunch of podcasts, is when people use the word kingdom, you guys have kingdom. People think a geographic place. Yeah. Well, if you look at the Greek kind of translation of that, that's not what it means. What it means is royal power, royal control, and royal dominion. So in Genesis, it's you have control and dominion, complete control and dominion over the earth and all the, right? But that message is different, totally different. So instead of the kingdom of heaven is within you, instead it's the royal power, the royal control, and the royal dominion is within you to make it here as it is there. Okay. Right? And now you're because you turn that on its side, Now you're leading that way.
What about like, have you ever had like a spiritual or religious experience
Yeah.
where it shaped your life?
Oh, 100%.
Oh, sure.
And at an interesting place, not at church. So
the box?
no, it was at like Tony Robbins event. So we're
Okay.
doing like a gratitude thing.
Okay.
And there's like 5,000 people in the room. And I have this experience that is difficult to articulate with words.
Okay.
Because at the time, I am just like you, hard charging, very analytical, very much so in the world. And this experience is like of this like really big presence that felt like it filled up the whole room. And what I heard it kind of like saying to me is, I love you. I don't want you to worry and be scared. Like this is meant to enjoy. It's not meant to like slide through painfully.
Yeah.
And I start crying uncontrollably.
Really?
Yeah, and the dude next to me is like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, dude, like I'm good.
Yeah.
Because it's like this unconditional like
Yeah.
love. And I remember I called a buddy of mine who's like, evangelical Christian, like super into that. I was like, what do I do with that, bro? Like that's like, I don't even know what that is. And he was like, oh, and like my language, we would say that that's like this, that's what that is. And usually that happens for a reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in the past, that would be, I would hear people say that and be like, come on, bro, like, what is that?
Yeah.
But because I had a direct experience of that, that was like you had started me down that path.
Yeah. So you weren't really like, were you going to church and stuff before that? Oh, okay.
No, I wasn't reading the Bible. I wasn't. I think for me, like, it's like I'm in the past, I don't know about you, but I was very motivated by significance. So I wanted people to know. And I'm very competitive by nature.
Yeah.
So it was like, hey, I want to be like the guy. I want everybody to know.
Yeah.
And it's wild to think of like the example, which is like, right before knowing that his time on earth was going to come to an end, what he did was wash everybody's feet. And what he said is go love others as the way I've loved you.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
I know.
That's like, what are you saying, bro? Like, that's unbelievable. And I know it's like a measure that's like, I think it perhaps impossible, to live to perfectly, but I think it's certainly one to aspire to.
Yeah. What about, I guess last topic, like when you go off a course,
Yeah.
let's say you find yourself anxious or depressed or whatever the case may be, do you ever like figure out how you got there and then how to quickly get back?
Yeah. So I think like why, I think people get lost in why, and why is less important than how, because how is process. I can do something with how.
Okay.
And what I focus on is what I feel, and what I feel is my emotional home. So I can live in a mansion, but if I'm focusing on what's not working or what I don't like, then I'm going to feel lack and scared and worried, right? So I need to pay attention to how I may be contributing to my own discomfort. Because something may happen that moves me, let's say, to like the uptight end of the continuum.
Yeah.
And anxiousness is usually about projecting into the future, and it's worrying about what's going to happen there and trying to really control it.
Yeah.
Like perfectly. And someone like you're good at maneuvering props and players into configurations that please you. So you're good at maneuvering parts on the outside. At the same time, it's still like imagining that if somehow I maneuver them in this particular configuration, then all will be well. I'll be centered and at peace. I'll feel that beautiful thing on the inside, right? And the problem with that is that when you maneuver things into configurations that please you, they never stay there. It's kind of like, imagine if you saw like ducks. You know how people say they want to get their ducks in a row? So imagine you saw somebody in a park with a bullhorn yelling at ducks to walk in a straight line. You'd be like, that person's got
An
a
idiot.
problem. Yeah. Or they have like a mental problem.
Yeah.
They need to go talk to somebody. Yet isn't that what we do?
Yeah.
We stand over our ducks and we yell at them. Why are you not straight? Why isn't this not bigger? Why isn't this faster? Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
And so through awareness, if I can become aware, like, hey, how am I contributing to this? What am I focused on right now? Right? And then physiology is another component where my nervous system responds to my physiology. So let's say me and you were having a conversation, and let's say we were in a heated debate or argument. and somebody comes in and tells a ridiculously funny joke,
Yeah.
it's impossible for us to stay mad.
Yeah.
Because my nervous system responds to my physiology. So fear is a visceral response, but so is courage. I have to like train courage into my body. And then language.
Hold on, rewind. You trained courage into your body? Is that what you said?
Yeah, well, I have to train it. And
How do you do that?
Well, I think the way you do that is by like intentionally and purposely moving towards things that are difficult physically. So like, you know, whether that's a workout, whether that's a cold plunge, like temperature, whether that's, you know, it's too hot out and I don't feel like going outside, but doing it is you take that little governor that's in your mind that's always trying to be like, don't do that, whatever, in an attempt to preserve your well-being. But we don't live in a time of like bears and liars and tigers anymore.
Yeah.
And every time you make a different decision, that voice gets smaller. Well, there's this thing called the internet, and that's come around over the last 20, 25 years, and now people have access to data and information. They probably know more about home values than most agents do. So the way that I ask that question is like, you know, Jose, you strike me to be someone who's pretty savvy. So I'm sure you've been online, looked at some of these sites that give estimates of value. So I'm wondering, did you have an idea of realistically what you were thinking in terms of price? And it's like, yeah, and I'm sure you've been to some of these sites. Notice I'm not mentioning names, because those guys are trying to eat our lunch, so I'm not going to give them free promotion. They give estimates of values. So did you have an idea at all of realistically? Now, the reason why I use that specific word is that everything about after the word realistically has to be realistic. And they're going to tell you something. It's either going to be a variation of a few things. One is going to be like, yeah, you know, we were thinking this. Or one is, well, you know, I kind of want to hear what you have to say first, right? So it's kind of a variation of a few things. But that's really the only responses that you're going to get. I want to hear what you have to say, like that sort of thing. So let's say they say to you, well, yeah, you know, we were thinking this. Okay, great. And I appreciate your willingness to share that. My intention in asking is really just to gauge your expectation. My goal and objective, provided the opportunity, is to help you maximize value and get you every penny possible. I'm also the mindset, Jose, I'd much rather earn your business with integrity, being honest and straightforward about what's reasonable and realistic versus promising you something I know is not going to happen and not be able to deliver. So in preparation for us connecting, myself and team and staff are going to be doing a lot of homework, and we're going to send you an email to your email address. And in that email, amongst other things, will be an updated market analysis that I'll bring with me during our time together. And what we'll look at is what's active on the market right now and not selling with pictures so we can compare apples to apples. Then we'll look at what has sold and closed most recently, because of course, as you know, what something's worth is what somebody's willing to pay and what they had to offer and how much they got. And from all of that information, we're going to determine together as a team, not a pinpoint to the penny in terms of price, but instead a very tight, realistic range as to what would be reasonable. Does that approach make sense to you? And they're going to be like, yeah, makes perfect sense. And also what I'm doing there and how I'm structuring that, I'm including them in the decision making. I think the training and what people would receive previously was like, I know and you don't. But that exists for a world in which consumers don't have access to data, where I can go in and be like, I know and you don't. And that's not the world that we live in now. So instead, this approach is very much so coming from a place of inclusion. It's like, look, this is your property. I know you have access to data. I know you're checking these sites every day. So what we're going to do together as a team is we're going to look at this data. And as specialized knowledge becomes, like as information becomes free, specialized knowledge becomes more valuable. So I'm here just to help you to interpret and to consult. And ultimately, you're the boss. You'll decide how we wish to proceed. And whatever you decide, I'll support you.
Agreed. And then when you're digging for the price, just know that they don't have to give you like an exact number as to what they want to list it at. You just have to have some sort of indication as to where they want to be. Meaning, like if they say, well, look, my neighbor's house sold at 700,000. I think mine's better. So I'm thinking higher than 700,000. Boom. You've got some indication as well, too. And then also sometimes what they'll say is, and you kind of covered this already, they'll say, well, we want to hear what you have to say about price as well, too, you know? And what most agents typically do is they'll say, well, like as a professional real estate agent, I study homes and prices every day. Therefore, I assume that you'll list with me at a price that'll cause it to sell. So what price won't you go below? And the problem is that as soon as you say, like, what price won't you go below? Like, imagine being on the receiving end of that. Imagine you are the person that they're like, what price won't you go below? And it's like, well, I thought you were my fiduciary. I thought you were my real estate agent. I thought you're trying to help me get top dollar for my property. Why do you want to know what price I won't go below? And it creates like this like mixed messaging where like you're telling them that you're going to help them and you're telling them that you're going to help them get top dollar. And then your messaging over here is like, well, what price won't you go below? Like,
yeah. And I led with a question of, you're going to listen to me when I see you, and what price won't you go below? It's very clear what the intentions are behind that, which is like, this is about me, and I'm interested in like, what's the lowest amount that you're willing to sell the property for, instead of coming from a place of contribution, which is like, look, we're going to look at this together as a team, and I'm going to give you some options that you have at your disposal, and whatever you decide, I'll support you 100%. I want you to know that our interests are in alignment. Obviously, we get compensated more the more we help you sell it for. At the same time, again, I'm committed to earning your business with integrity versus promising you the moon and not being able to deliver. Does that sound fair? And they're like, yeah, that sounds super fair. And now we're like in alignment, right? It's kind of like if I came up to you and you were, I don't know, selling your car or something. Like the first thing I said to you was like, hey, what price won't you go below? It's like, screw you, buddy. Like, what do you mean? What price won't I go below? Now it's very clear to me, like you're trying to like take from me instead of trying to contribute and add value to me.
Yeah. And then there's also more basic ways of asking for price. Like a very basic way is like, or Aaron, when I see you, how much did you want to list your home for? It's very simple. It's like, and this is the room. This is another room. Now in the room, we're focusing about price, and that's all we're talking about. And sometimes whenever they say, well, look, Jose, we actually would like to keep that information confidential. We want to hear what you have to say first. We're going to take what you tell us and we're going to compare it to 2 or 3 other agents. Most agents will be like, okay, there are ways to handle that. And you described one. I'm going to share the way I handle it. I'll be like, well, look, Aaron, the reason I'm asking you about the price is more or less to gauge expectation. I want to make sure that you and I are on the same page. Let me give you an example. I had a seller last week tell me that they wanted me to tell them the price. We talk a little bit further. They tell me that they want $3 million for the property. I know realistically the property would only move for $1 million. I could tell you that over the phone, or I could tell them that over the phone. So in that case, it wouldn't make sense for me for us to meet. So I'm not asking what price do you want to tell you exactly what you want to hear and almost regurgitate that price right back to you. The reason I'm asking is just to make sure that our expectations are somewhere in line. So what were you thinking? And they're like, well, I was thinking somewhere around 700 to 750. Boom. That's all I need to know. I'm still, as the agent, I'm still going to do my own independent research. I'm still going to do my own market analysis. I'm still going to have my own opinion about the price as well, too. But at least I know what they're thinking now. And I want to make sure that they're somewhat in line. And like what happens? Like, okay, so what if they want $1 million and their property's only worth 750? Like,
we need to have a conversation before I come and see you. Like I would do a second pre-qualify and be like, hey, I'm, really doing my best to support, your expectation and what you want. At the same time, I'm not seeing data to, show me that that's an accurate assessment of things. So what I'd like to do is go over some of the recent sales in hopes that can help you to decide what you feel is best. Because again, as I mentioned to you in preparation for connecting, my job's to help you. It's never to talk you into doing anything. So and then you go over that information. Did you know that? And then say they're like, well, damn it, and I won't. And then what I would say is so let's say you knew that through no fault of your own or mine, which is a key phrase, right? The marketplace is showing us that buyers and sellers have been agreeing for $750 for your home. And those recent sales were in the last 30, 60, 90 days. If you knew that that's what it would be required, around that price point is what it would take to actually get the home sold, do you think you would still proceed with selling, or would you try to figure out a different option, maybe renting it or staying put or something of that nature? And then they're going to tell me that. And I'd rather them tell me that before I get in a car and go drive them and talk to them for an hour about, the situation.
And this is one of those things that like, this might be one of the rooms that I walk back into, Aaron. I know that we don't move into another room until we're done with that conversation. And the reason I would say this is like, let's say that you look at the comps or the area really well, and that everything is selling around 700, but let's say they want 799. But let's say that you walk into the other room and the other room's they say, you ask them, would you describe your home for me? Meaning like, what is the condition of the property? And let's say that they tell you, I've got a guest house in the back that brings in $3,000 of rental income. Is there a possibility now, if everything's selling at 700, that they could get that 800,000? So like, whenever they tell me the price there, like regardless of what the price is, I don't question it until I know what the condition of the property is. So for example, like there's still going to be a couple of other rooms that we're going to walk into. And then when I go into the condition of the property, I'm looking for like, hey, look, like, can we, because I remember like talking to a seller and the guy goes, yeah, I want like 800,000. I'm thinking like, dude, no way you're going to get 800,000. And then that's what I'm thinking in my head. And then he tells me I've got a guest house. I know that rare guest houses are extremely rare in that community. And he starts telling me that his house is fully decked out and that the guest house brings in $2,000. Now I'm like, there's a chance you might be able to get that 800,000, even though it's $100,000 more than anything that is sold in the community, because you do have that extra dwelling at the property. So that might, in my situation, I might want to walk back into that room. Now, if once they describe the home to me and there's not enough, like it's not there, then we can have that conversation as well too, as to, hey, look, I'm not finding any data that supports that price.
Agreed. And I think there's two rooms that we could potentially go back into. One is what you described as far as what the property has to offer. The second is his motivation. So I'm less like concerned about, what they're telling me price wise, as long as the motivation's strong, because motivation always fixes price. So if they were to say to me, "Lay, I want 790," and I asked them in the motivation room, is it an option for you to not sell the home and still move? And they're like, no. Is it an option for you to rent the home and still move? And they're like, no. And if you don't mind me asking, was there any particular reason you were even considering selling? I have a new job and they want me out there in the next 90 days. Okay. Like that person's moving. So even though they're saying to me like this, it's not an option for them not to sell, and it's not an option for them to rent it and still move. So, we're still going to have a conversation with them for sure. So there's two rooms that you can revisit. One is what the property has to offer, and two is motivation.
And the key there, bro, is that motivation fixes price. A lot of people they want 800,000. The home's only worth 700,000. But if their motivation is strong enough, like they're gonna sell regardless, and it's either gonna be with you or somebody else. And motivation is really the key to taking a lot of listings. You want to get in front of people that are motivated to do something, not people like, yeah, if it happens, great. If it doesn't, then that's okay too,
Exactly. Yeah. So good. So then we have this conversation. If they push back at you, like we said, we asked them about price, like how did you, I'm sure you've been to some of these sites to give estimates of value. So did you have an idea at all of realistically what you were thinking in terms of price? And they'll tell you, and then you'll say like, okay, great. And then in terms of the property, have you done any changes or modifications to the inside that you believe would affect its value? Examples being like kitchen, bathrooms, or flooring. Because to Jose's point, what he just said, I need to know this information as myself or staff are doing a CMA, because that's going to allow us to get a realistic range. Again, not a pinpoint to the penny, but a tight range as to what's going to be reasonable or realistic based on terms and condition. based on, features and amenities that the home has to offer. And then what I do is like, as we're talking about this, I'll kind of guide them. So in Florida, there's certain things they'll be like, yeah, this and this, like, okay. And how about in the kitchen, like countertops, cabinets, appliances, any changes or modifications there? And they'll be like, oh yeah. Like, okay, now how about flooring? Is it tile or wood or carpet? How about the bathrooms? Any like vanities, commodes, showers, any changes there? And I'll pull it up on Google Map and I'll be like, yeah, I'm very familiar with your community. I'm pretty sure like your property backs up to a body of water. And they're like, whoa, how'd you know that? It's like, I'm a magician. There's this thing called the internet, right? So, and then like major like heating and cooling systems, the bones, like a AC, water heater, roof, any issues there. And in Florida, hurricane impact windows is a thing. So I'll be like, hey, do you have hurricane impact windows? No. Okay. And then the follow-up question to that is, do you plan on making any additional changes or modifications before I start to bring buyers through? And that's where we're like assumptively closing. Now we're not just gathering information, but we're starting to move the process forward.
The other thing, like the way I look at would you describe your home to me is I like to think about it like I want to ask enough questions until I'm able to visualize what their home kind of looks like from the inside or what their home kind of looks like in my head. So I'll ask questions like, so for example, like I'll say like, okay, would you please describe your property for me? And then just like you, I'll guide them through different rooms. I'll say, have you done any upgrades? And or they'll say something like, well, yeah, my house is fully remodeled. Okay, great. When you say fully remodeled, do you mean that you've upgraded the kitchen? Yes, that means I've upgraded the kitchen. Okay, great. When you say you've upgraded the kitchen, does that mean that you redid the cabinetry, or does that mean that you repainted the kitchen cabinets and just resurfaced them? Because that makes a difference in our area. You know, if they spent $100,000 or $50,000 on brand new cabinetry versus if they just sanded the existing cabinets down, painted them, and put new doorknobs, that's a different style of upgrade. Okay, great. You mind me asking what kind of countertops you have? You mind me asking what type of flooring you have throughout the house? Sometimes they'll say like, okay, I've got this nice laminate flooring. Okay, you mind me asking what color is the laminate flooring? Because I want to see how modern or how outdated the property is going to feel. Because just because somebody has remodeled that property, that doesn't mean it's remodeled to today's standard. Meaning like I could have remodeled my property 10 years ago. What if I remodeled my property back in the 1960s, bro? In the 1960s, that was hip. Today, I don't think that's as hip, you know, today, although some of the things are coming back now, you know, like wallpaper and some of those things, but still. So whenever I am asking them, I may even ask them, okay, you mind me asking when these upgrades were done? Oh, they were done 15 years ago. Okay. If I start to see like colors like in my area, like browns or like tans, that's not what's in right now. So it may still sell for a really good price, but it may not sell like if they have the white kitchen, if they have the light gray walls, they have the light gray floorings, that might sell at more of a premium because that is more in line with the styles that are happening right now. So I like to ask questions that are going to allow me to visualize what level of remodel they did, when they did the remodel.
People that made impacts. I mean, you know, Mike initially was impactful as far as just like, I learned the sales process.
Anything by Jim Rohn?
I learned a tremendous amount from him. Like a lot of my philosophy comes from Jim. Really, Tony Robbins, like a mentor. Tony Robbins worked for him for 4 years. I went to a couple Tony Robbins events that were really impactful for me. The two that were the most impactful were Date with Destiny and Business Mastery. Business Mastery really changed my thinking. He brought a technologist on stage and I saw like what was, you know, it was like wild what was already happening at that time. Yeah, and then the rest are like books, you know, like that I've never met them in person, but they've mentored me from a distance, you know what I mean? Like Robert Kiyosaki with Cash Flow Quadrant or Rich Dad Poor Dad, that really had a big impact on my thinking. The book Quantum Leaps, or U Squared. It's not Quantum Leaps. Yeah, U Squared. You know, the fundamental understanding that harder work just leads to incremental gains, and that's the thing that those people in that group that you were in don't understand. Because harder work just leads to like you doing 10 more deals, 15 more deals, 20 more deals, whatever it is. But quantum leaps, going from one place to another, like 10xing, that comes from different strategies, different approaches, different techniques, different vehicles.
Right.
I was texting somebody today, like 3 years ago, I was selling 150 to 180 homes a year, working 70 hours a week, missing out on other areas of my life. And now I'm sitting in a Rolls Royce on my way to do an event, and I work Monday through Thursday and have 179 agents in the organization. It's because I changed my mind about certain things. Yeah, so there's been multiple people, and the majority of them have not been. I learned a lot from Pete Vargas about speaking, like, you know, like how to structure a talk. So that way it has a high degree of probability of conversion. I learned a lot from social from Ryan Pineda, because I've been in his Wealthy Creator program for the last, 8, 9, 10 months. And that's really helped. I've learned shit from Jose too, like watching him do what he was doing. It's happened both ways. And that's a really cool relationship, because a lot of times sometimes people's egos are too big where they don't allow that to happen. But yeah, I learned watching him with what he was doing in social. And that's what caught my eye, you know, because we're both very competitive. And I was like, this fucking guy, like, what's he doing?
You know, it's funny. There's a funny story. I was like, I think he had more followers than me at the time on social. Yeah. And then I told him, hey, bro, I'm going to catch up to you. And he goes, by the time you get to where I'm at, like I'm gonna be already a step ahead. And whenever people say stuff like that to me, I'm
He
like,
gets charged up, bro.
damn, bro. It pumps me up for some reason, and it drives me. So then I started like taking social seriously, and I think that was one of the things that like I told them, I'm like, hey, look, I had already joined EXP. I'm told them this is the vision. We're gonna build a leadership team. And then I'm going to blow up on social media. And then a lot of people are going to be hitting me up, and I'm going to need leaders to basically help me build this large organization. And I think when he saw, and I don't know if this to be true, when he saw that I actually started like following through on that,
Yeah.
he basically was like,
Okay.
he's serious about this, you know?
Yeah. I think that's true.
Yeah. You think so?
Yeah, I think that's true. And then I just had to have a conversation with Lars where he could help me to understand the model, because I'm the type of like, I don't say I'm the type of person because I'm defining myself, but what's true for me is that like, I want to understand it. I want to like understand what it is. And I needed to make sure that it was not just good for me, but it was good for other people, for everybody. And once I got clear on that, then it was a million miles an hour. And through evolving over time and through all of the evolutions that I did, what it allowed me to do, another one is Hermosi. Bro, that guy's spot on, bro. He's fucking solid. He knows his shit inside and out. And his explanation of the opportunity ladder combined with the 4 forms of leverage that I learned from Naval in his book, The Almanac of Naval Ravikant, all of those things like coalesced for me to really be able to let go of selling real estate in high volume and put all of my time, energy, and effort into what we're doing now.
Things that compound.
Things that compound. So the only things I do now are things that compound, which are social and agent attraction, because they get bigger as time progresses. So this month, 35 agents onboarded, but I personally brought 4 to the company. Like imagine taking 4 listings and like, what is that, 31 more show up? That's dope, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think you can you can spend a whole career preparing for one opportunity. And I believe that's what I've been doing. I spent 17 years preparing to do this. But yeah, bro, I'm just like a shortcut to the library. Like, you know, all of these people are like, you know, imagine sitting next to Bill Gates and he's like, yo, I'm on a plane with you and I'm going to teach you everything that I know, all my mistakes, all my wins, and it's going to cost $35. Would you be like, nah, it's a little too much? One of my favorite biographers is Washington, A Life. Won the Pulitzer Prize for biographies. It's about George Washington. Bro, that shit was like, it's the biggest book I ever read. It was probably like 1,100 pages, but it was really impactful because I didn't really understand like why, you know, Washington's like, you know.
Washington.
Yeah. You read that book, you understand very quickly. You're like, oh man, this dude was exceptional, bro.
Why was he Washington?
His men like really loved him for a couple of reasons. One is like, he always had this, back to what we were talking about at the table as far as like responsibility versus rewards. He always had the same provisions as the men that he was leading. So if the men were sleeping in the mud, he slept in the mud. If the men were eating shitty food, he ate the shitty food. And he also always led from the front.
And he had a white horse.
A white horse, bro. So like everybody knew who the leader was. Like he wasn't hiding from anybody. And there was a story in the book, which is wild, where they were in a battle and like they had this commander went down. And when the commander goes down, everybody else like runs away. And Washington sees this from afar and he gallops over, like in the middle of a battle. He gallops over on his big white horse. So everybody knows he's the guy. He catches all the people retreating. He's like, where are you going? You need to go this way. And he leads them back into battle. Right? How many people that could have become an absolute leader, like an absolute like monarch, basically, have absolute power, abdicate and give it back? They kept wanting him to be president. He's like, no, I don't want to do it anymore. Twice. Second time they had him, he didn't want to do it. They talked him into it, like, look, this shit's going to fall apart. The other thing that was interesting about, and then the third time he's finally like, no, it's enough. Like, I'm not doing this anymore.
They wanted him to be president for a 3rd term?
Yeah. A 4th. They wanted just to keep going. And he was just like, no, I'm not going to do it anymore. There needs to be new leadership, right? The other thing I thought was really interesting about that book is just how close we came to losing. Like how much of a ragtag group of like, they didn't have they didn't have equipment. They didn't have like the right shit. Like they totally should have lost. How close it was to them losing. But it reiterates that everything rises and falls on leadership.
You know, it's funny. For a while, I never read any books. and I would just learn everything about books from him. I would just be around. I'd be like, oh, that like George Washington did this.
You get the cliff notes from me, bro.
I would, and it was helpful because it would change the way that I would think. You know?
Yeah.
Dang, you drinking coffee, bro? You normally don't drink coffee. What are you doing?
It's my birthday, bro. I get
Is
to do
it?
what I want today. Yeah.
Is it your birthday?
Yeah. Somebody brought me coffee. Yeah.
Get out of here, bro. I didn't know that. Dang, bro. Happy birthday, Jose. How old are you? 37, 38?
37. Yeah.
I've been telling people you're 37 already. I don't know why.
That's what you were telling me before I started making $1 million. You were like, oh, you're going to make $1 million. No problem. So I think you just, you can see things before they happen.
Is that what it is? That's good. Well, happy birthday, bro. We do this kind of role play group on Wednesdays where we do live role play with agents. And what we went over this week was how to give a formal presentation and list buyers. You know, I know that the majority of our business has been listing property in high volume. I know all the leverage on the listing side. At the same time, I'm also aware that most agents are very buyer heavy. 60 to 80% of their deals are buy side deals. And now with these rule changes, it's going to be a requirement at some point. You know, they're having to work through the changes because there's kind of unintended consequences. So they may not go into effect until maybe December, you know. At the same time, we could just operate under the assumption that it's definitely going to change. You're going to need to get buyer brokerage agreements signed. You're going to need to have a conversation about compensation upfront, and you're going to need to give a formal presentation with regards to, you know, a prospective buyer choosing you as their agent to represent them and help them to purchase a home. And for me and you as listing agents, we've been doing that forever. You know, go in, you give a formal presentation, you discuss the services that you're going to be providing, the reasons why, you know, you feel like you can be of service and to help them. And then we discuss the compensation and what it is up front, and we authorize an agreement. So this is really no different than that. It's just that now buyers, agents are going to have to do that. And because they've never had to do it, because it hasn't been mandatory, I believe that it's a skill set that many don't have.
Yeah. What I was going to say, even when I was a buyer's agent, I was having buyer's consultations with buyers before going out to show them properties as well too. But you're right. I think it's something that most buyer's agents are not doing, are not accustomed to it. So like anything, is just an adaptation. Like, so who was it that said the quote, it's not the fittest, it's not the smartest, it's not the strongest that survive, it's the ones that are most willing to adapt and able to adapt. And that's the same thing in real estate. Like, I'll give you guys an example. If you think about this, think about like, there was agents that were really successful in an REO market, and then it turned into a traditional market. There's certain agents that did really well in the REO market and really well in the traditional market. Certain agents did well in the REO market, but not in the traditional. Why? They failed to adapt. So like anything in the industry, I think that the people that produce outcomes, like generous outcomes over a long period of time, it's the ones that can see what's going on in the marketplace, say, okay, like I need to adapt to this. How do I adapt? What skill set do I need to learn? They learn the skill set and everything's normal. And in some cases, they even do better because they're able to adapt. So the reason we're having these episodes is just to help you guys recognize that it's a skill set that you guys can learn, and it's a skill set that if you guys learn, you guys can adapt and obviously get better outcomes as well.
Yeah, agreed. 100%. I mean, that's no different than how I did 100 deals one year, 75 were expireds, but then, and that was because expireds were at an all-time historic high.
Yeah.
And then the marketplace got better, and what happens to expireds is that they shrink.
Disappear.
And when that happened, I banged my head against the wall for 90 days. And then I realized I needed to get a different source because it was not acceptable to me to do less and not continue to grow and expand. That source became probate. And then I went from 100 deals to 500 deals. And then, you know, these online lead sources came around. Cool. We started to do that. And that was an awesome source of business, like made over, I don't know, $250,000 just doing those sources. I know now you're using PPL. So it's just, like you're saying, adapting to the market. So if you are going to work with buyers, which I know many agents will, this is a skill set that you're going to have to learn. You're going to have to learn how to give a formal presentation on the products and services that you're going to be providing. Then you're going to have to learn, you know, how to present the different ways that you can get compensated, because there'll be different ways that you can get to it. Explain that if there's a gap between the compensation that you're looking for and what is being offered out or what can be negotiated, that it would be the responsibility of the buyer to pay that, and explain to them what happens on the outside chance if a listing agent's not going to provide any compensation at all, right? The different options that they have at their disposal, and handle any objections that they may have, right? Because they may have some objections and they may come back at you, be like, well, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if, what if that happens?
I also think that it's important for people working with buyers that they have a process. So on the listing side, we would have a process, and it's a very similar process on the buyer side. So like on the listing side, step one is you set an appointment. Nothing's going to happen unless you set an appointment to meet with somebody. Step two, you pre-qualify that appointment, meaning you collect some information before you go on the appointment. Step three, you send a pre-listing package, or you send a pre-buy package. So you need to create a package that you can send out to buyers, let them know what it's going to look like working with you and frequently asked questions, etc. Step four, you call to confirm the appointment. And step five, you give a great presentation. So I think if people understand that there's a process. So if somebody says, hey, Jose, look, I just got qualified to buy a property. It's like, okay, what is the first step? Step one is set the appointment. Great. So the first step in the home buying process is for us to sit down for what's called the buyer's consultation.
Look at who joined us today. Bro, you're looking skinnier, bro. I see it, dude. I see it in your face. I was going to tell you on the media and just DM you, be like, man, he's thinning out, bro. Good for you, man.
I still got a goal to get to 190. So I'm at 198.